Hey, what's up everyone? Welcome back to the Institute of Christ Research. Today I want to talk about INFJ's cognitive functions. So this is a continuation of my first part where I talked about which of the cognitive functions were the INFJs, and why those certain cognitive functions were the INFJs, and also I presented the hierarchy which the cognitive functions were ordered in. So in this video, I'm actually going to talk about um, some things that are very, very important to note about the cognitive functions. And this just doesn't have to apply to the INFJ. And this certain model or the models that I will present in this video are actually very common with, or actually they are all um, in the other 15 personalities. So let's just start. Oh, so remember in the last video where I talked about the conscious form in the INFJ? Well, the conscious form, basically, to recap from the last video, are the forming functions that we use during 75% or most of the day. They're the functions that are most present in the INFJ, the functions that we are aware of. But what if I told you that there are two more sides of the mind that we use? They're inside of us. There's not just an INFJ. There's also this. As you can see, we also have an ESTP and an ENFP inside of us. So, let's see here. Yeah, these are the three sides of the mind. So basically, like in the last video, I presented that these are the main cognitive functions. So what is this? The aspirational side of the mind. The aspirational side of the mind is actually the side of the mind that we can improve ourselves most in. So, for example, if we go down and improve, for example, extroverted feeling, become more social, we form more friendships and relationships, and then we improve our TI. We become great learners. We study up on a certain topic. Um, and then we go into extroverted sensing where we present our ideas from our introverted intuition. Like for example, I'm actually doing my YouTube videos. I'm connecting these two. Well, explain that later on. There's actually a system for that. And yeah, once we reach our extroverted sensing, which has to do, like I said in my last video, about physical reality, like how things actually are and not we how we think they are. Experienced sensing is not at all about any form of interpretation. It's just about how things actually look like in real life. So once we go down here, we actually unlock our aspirational side of the mind if we've improved these three functions in this order. So when we reached our aspirational self, we act as an ESTP, because our ESTP is actually the side of ourselves which we're the best at. Let me repeat that. We have to become ESTPs in order to become self-actualized INFJs. We have to then continue on improving our extrovert sensing, and then going back again to our TI and our FE, and then our NI. And the aspirational self can actually manifest, and also sometimes in a negative way. And this only happens if we just neglect improving on these cognitive functions, and if we just automatically go into our aspirational self. Usually what will happen is that we will turn into our dark side. And sometimes it can happen just because of the TI and SE being stress functions for the INFJ. Usually if we aren't improving on them, there are actually more stress functions. There are functions that are holding us back. There are functions that appears like if we, for example, get an idea from our NI, our TI might say, "Oh, will that even does that even make sense?" And our SE might come in like, "Oh, will we ever even use this concept? Is this even applicable to real life?" And then, if we continue, like Eric Ford said, our stress functions, if we continue using them in a really bad way and don't improve them, we automatically turn into our ESTP side, but in a way that's very toxic. But then, if we continue on in a very toxic behavior, we can actually access our shadow side. Now, our shadow side is, in other words, our ENFP side of the mind, and this side of the mind is the most toxic. It's basically, these are our shadow functions, and our shadow functions is correlated to our shadow. Now, according to Carl Jung, he presented the idea of the shadow as being this side of us that we have not nurtured well, the side of us that we really don't even know about. He said that we can access our shadow um, for our dreams. Like, if we look at our dreams and then analyze them, we can see, okay, these are things about us that we may have not nurtured enough, as well as things that we might have like put back inside of our heads because we don't really want them to be exposed to the world. They are our these are insecurities and things that we are ashamed of ourselves. Things that we're ashamed of ourselves of. If that makes sense. So, oh, I actually have the book right here. So, yeah, according to this book right here, he goes on saying that the shadow is a form of us that we have not nurtured well, like I said, and um, that we might think of as being very terrible for us, very like this side of us that's quite evil. Now, we will actually access this evil side automatically if we don't take care of any of this stuff. If we just automatically go here, then of course we'll access this unconsciously. And that's also very important to note. It's an unconscious process. The shadow is something that we don't have control of as our ego form. It's just something that appears automatically in us. So the shadow, what's very also important of shadow is that it's correlated to our shadow functions, and then we can see, okay, our shadow functions, we don't have conscious control of them. They just appear automatically, but they don't always have to be bad. They can give us quite, for example, in reality check, things actually work. And when, for example, we get a bit full of ourselves, which happens to all of us, in our ego side of the mind, well, of course, the shadow will come in and say, no, you have to stop. So, what's the solution for the shadow? Should we develop on them? No, don't develop your shadow functions or your shadow. If you do that, then you will actually become this evil part of yourselves. And for an INFJ, you'll become the ENFP, which you should never do. What you should do instead is focus on these functions because you have conscious control of them. You don't have any conscious control of your shadow at all. Like, at all. You don't have any conscious control of it. You have conscious control of your ego, and that's it. Um, so solution here is to work on these. For example, FB become more social, TI reading more books, for example, and SC making sure that you exercise and do all that stuff, and that your NI fears become applicable to the real world. So yeah, do that and also embrace it. Like Carlin said, you have to embrace your shadow. You have to embrace the part of yourself that you might think is evil or that you might think is just something that you don't want, something that you're a bit scared of even. Just embrace it and let it be. That would be my suggestion. Those were the three sides of the mind. Let's look at this. First of all, we have cognitive axis and then convergent and divergent. This is essential to knowing about cognitive functions and how we work. So, as you can see here with the cognitive axis, like I said in my last video, these functions are presented in a hierarchy. So you can see here, Ni is the dominant, Fe is the parent, Ti is the child, Sc is aspirational. So what's happening here is that Ni takes care of Sc as well as Sc takes care of Ni. Like I said before in this video, for example with Ni, you can come up with a theory, or you can hear a theory and think, oh, that sounds great. But then your SC will kick in and say, okay, how does that apply to the real world? So these two functions balance each other out. And this is because they're both are two perceiving functions. They are how we interact with the world. They are how we gather information, basically. So you can see here, Ni controls SC and SC controls Ni. It's basically a feedback loop of Ni, like I said, maybe a theory, and then SC wants to apply it, and then when it's applicable, Ni gets new knowledge about it, about the experience, and then that goes into XE, and they just continue lingering on each other. And we also have Fe and Ti. This is our, instead of our perceiving functions, these are our two judging functions that we are conscious of. And these two functions are functions that we are, I'm sorry, there are judging functions. And they also go into this feedback loop of Ti. For example, we learn about something and we study a particular subject. Maybe, for example, math. We try to become great at math. Well, and then we might express some of the maybe a formula to another person. We actually teach them the formula of math, and this actually correlates with our Ti because these two are the two sides of the same coin. Same thing with Ni and Se. These are two sides of the same coin. I forgot to mention that. So when we've explained this to another person, kind of feel good about ourselves. I'm not gonna lie, INFJs really like explaining things to other people so they can feel good about themselves. And then Fe goes into Ti, where Ti just starts rationalizing it and or creates this logical framework. Okay, what did I say that was right, and what can I teach another person next time that's even more right than the next time? Because Ti child is very concerned about being right. That's so important for them. So now that you know about cognitive axis, that they're two sides of the same coin, and then the perceiving functions basically feed into each other. Same thing with the joining functions that go into the shot, feed into each other. You have the convergent and the divergent stack. Let's look at here. The convergent stack is basically the two functions that you prefer to use. So this is why introverts appear, as introverts and not really ambiverted. Same thing with extroverts, because introverts like using their introverted functions. That's it. That's the difference between introverts and extroverts. Even though all the types have both introverted and extroverted functions, the introverted functions are basically just the two functions that the introverts prefer to use. Same thing with extrovert. The extrovert prefers using its two extroverted functions. And what this is the convergence stack, the preference of use, basically. Now this is the opposite, divergence stack. They kind of feed into each other as well. This may be different from the axis, because that's an introvert function, then going into expressing it in an extrovert function. This is more of how we gain knowledge about the world. And in the case of an INFJ, our way is using the NITI way. We learn about something, and then we try to make it into put it into a logical framework. We learn about something, try to put it in a logical framework. The logical framework goes to NITI, NITI. That's how it goes. TI, NI, NITI, TI, NI. So when we try to express these ideas, we have to use our extrovert functions, our two functions that we don't like as much as these two, because we have to be slightly more extroverted while using these two functions. So SE and FE, extroverted sensing and extroverted feeling, go into each other as well, because when we try to express these ideas for extroverted sensing, then um, and then the way we express ideas is not like we have to force someone to listen to us. It's more like in a friendly manner, if you know what I'm saying. So for example, with me, I usually just say, "Oh, you don't have to listen to me. You can listen to me if you want to." I say that all the time in the real life. Um, like, "Oh, you don't have to listen to this fears that I found on the internet. You can just do it if you want to." So they go into each other as well. Then NI, this basically has to do with access, NISC, TIFE. So I hope you guys enjoy this. Make sure you keep watching. I will make a video about um, something. We'll see what it will be about. See you. Bye.